chips keep chippier, dips keep dippier. Tupperware freshness, that's our promise. Look at all the ways we keep it.
Whether it was the promise of keeping your lettuce crisp or the lifetime guarantee, it's difficult to find another brand of kitchen storage that's managed to weave itself into cultural heritage across the globe.
Tupperware.
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 Tupperware. Tupperware.
There's only one Tupperware.
So what went wrong?
The iconic brand, once a staple of American kitchens, filed this week for bankruptcy, citing what it called macroeconomic challenges.
Kia ora, I'm Davina Zimmer, and after almost 80 years of supplying households with lifetime warranted kitchen tools, Tupperware is shutting shop. The US brand was founded in 1946, but it wasn't until the following decade that its popularity skyrocketed after saleswoman Brownie Wise came up with the idea of Tupperware parties. Is the marketing breakthrough that made it a success also responsible for its demise? Or did the novelty just wear off?
Everybody associates Tupperware with Tupperware parties and with that particular way of selling.
Today on The Detail, we look at the rise and fall of the iconic kitchen brand, how it weaved its way into Kiwi culture and what people loved about it.
I just love the bright colours, oranges and yellows and browns, you know, the different designs and patterns.
I hear that you love Tupperware so much that you have a tattoo of Tupperware.
I do.
You do?
I do.
What's the tattoo of? I'm so curious.
When I told my daughter I was getting a Tupperware tattoo, she thought it was going to be like a picture of a container or, you know. So it's actually the Tupperware design, the pattern of the Tupperware jug, the picture. So I've got one design on each side of my hand.
Nick Watts, aka the Tupperware Fairy, has a soft spot, or some may see it as an obsession, for vintage Tupperware pieces.
So I pretty much, you know, trawl the Dunedin op shops most days, and list my retro Tupperware on my marketplace page. Yeah, I guess it's a Tupperware party on Marketplace.
Nick has a cupboard full of mismatched lids and containers, but unlike many Kiwi households, they're not stashed there gathering dust.
Because Tupperware used to do lifetime guarantee on lids. So if you had a cracked Tupperware lid or whatever, you could get hold of Tupperware and they'd send you another lid for your container. So now I have people sending me through, you know, measurements of particular lids and, you know, I really need to get this one for my favourite container.
Wellingtonian Lynn Hinton doesn't have a Tupperware tattoo. What she does have are lots of memories of parties when they were at their peak.
It was very exciting in those days, seeing all the new Tupperware containers that were coming out. Initially, they were all just in clear plastic, I think. But as time went on, they had them in all different pretty colours and such like. The hostess arrived with all her Tupperware pieces that were coming out in the near future, and that was all set up on tables for everybody to look at. Your friends all arrived, and then there would be games, and then often the hostess would use Tupperware to make something, cook something, scones, or set a jelly up in the jelly moulds.
The technique of buttering up potential customers over cheese and pineapple sticks and cups of tea may not be unique, but it's still one of the reasons why Bodo Lang, a professor in marketing at Massey University, thinks Tupperware has been so successful.
It was really marketing genius on how to monetize social networks of consumers. And this was, of course, back in the 50s, pre-internet and pre-social media. So I think that was really a stroke of genius to sort of activate these social networks rather than going through traditional retailers. I think the other reason was also they had high quality and possibly unique products at the time. They were made out of this wonder material called plastic. Plastic only became really famous and sort of more widespread use in homes in the 60s and 70s. But Tupperware started, I think, in the late 40s, and then their home selling party started in the 50s. So I think plastic products, when they first started, were just out of this world, because you could form them into all sorts of shapes and sizes and colors. And it was just something that people were genuinely excited about.
Well, Tupperware was just a whole new, we never seen anything like it before. In fact, thinking back, how did we stock our pantries? What did we use?
The good old orange Tupperware jug, the pitcher, still smells like Raro.
The potato masher was particularly good. I have a brother-in-law who now, all these years later, prefers their potato masher.
They had a hamburger cutter thing. You put your meat in and, press it down and you made half a dozen hamburgers.
I think my mother had one of those.
Yes.
Like a press.
Yes, yeah.
The other one is the Wonderlair bowl, and it's the yellow one that people normally remember as their spew bowl when they were kids.
And then it would get a good scrub, and then they'd probably put popcorn in it for the next movie night.
And then back in the cupboard, and it'll have your salad in it on Friday night.
There was what they called a salad keeper, and you could keep it for 10 days.
And any water or anything on the lettuce, it would just drain.
That shape ball, that was extremely popular.
Oh, the Shapo ball, that's iconic too.
And then I think the third kind of reason why Tupperware was so incredibly successful was that they had this extraordinary lifetime warranty that if any component of your product would fail, they would replace it for free for the lifetime of, for the lifetime of the consumer, really. And, I'm just struggling to think of a single other brand who does that sort of thing.
I mean, it's kind of been, dubbed the original pyramid scheme, where you get essentially fans of the product to do the selling for you. I mean, it's a stroke of genius in terms of marketing, because it's also quite cheap, isn't it?
It absolutely is cheap, Davina. And that, I think, is also possibly a small reason why, eventually this led to the downfall of the company, because their pyramid schemes are much more common now, and many of them are proper pyramid schemes. So, you don't have any customers effectively, and you're just really selling through your network. Tupperware is a bit different to that. I think they're guilty by association. So like other direct-to-consumer sales techniques, Tupperware potentially had this reputational problem that it might have been lumped together with proper pyramid selling schemes that can be illegal and that have led to many prosecutions and media scandals. And that would have just made it less likely for consumers to engage in the selling process. But when they first started with this direct-to-consumer, in-home, with a host who is known to everybody, showing off the virtues of the product, I think it's just a stroke of genius because you're really bypassing retailers, which means that, you're not paying them a margin, which is great. And you're using, your conversion ratio. So the ratio of, attendees to, number of people who buy a product would have been extraordinarily high. A proper pyramid scheme doesn't really have end consumers, whereas Tupperware end consumers are, people who have a household in a kitchen and who wish to have durable plastic containers in their kitchen, basically.
I think the secret to the Tupperware with these sealable lids.
In Auckland, former party host Jocelyn Hill shows Alexia Russell her very organised pantry of Tupperware. Some of it is nearly 50 years old and still in use. Over the years, other brands of kitchen storage have made their appearance.
I like these.
Oh, this click
They're
lids.
good,
Yeah.
but to me they don't seal. You don't hear the air rush out like you do with Tupperware.
So how did such a breakthrough storage solution lose its mass appeal?
It would be foolish to say, look, there's a single reason why this product or why this particular company has now failed. I think it's death by a thousand cuts. And to my mind, there are many different reasons why essentially they went into liquidation. The very first one, which is not particularly exciting, but it's just the truth, it's the novelty has worn off. It's just not new anymore. A thing that your grandmother or maybe your mother would have done, but, Tupperware party in 2024 is just not current anymore. And I think that's one reason why they failed. There's a whole raft of other reasons. And I think a really big one is that they've been killed by inconvenience.
Because Tupperware wasn't cheap either. It wasn't, you paid for the quality, I suppose.
Buying Tupperware, so basically plastic products for your kitchen, mostly for storage purposes, through a Tupperware party is an extremely inconvenient way to buy a very mundane product. The time cost is really, really high. And so really Tupperware was swimming against the tide of convenience-driven e-commerce shopping. And that makes Tupperware parties and Tupperware products unappealing to sell, and it makes it very unappealing to host these Tupperware parties. So the Tupperware sales model is really the opposite of convenience because it's not sold in retail stores and Tupperware is not known for its e-commerce capabilities. So it's a really tough sell to, get people together when they can really just, open up a web browser and pretty quickly buy a whole bunch of plastic storage containers online. What has happened in the last decades is that not just in New Zealand, but probably particularly New Zealand, the cost of living has escalated and traditional sort of family role models, of the wife staying at home and the man, going out to a paid job. I think those days are over for many, many families in many, many countries. And so if you have double income earners, well, they just don't have the time to host a Tupperware party.
Through my research, it does seem like Tupperware as a business have tried to modernise the way that they sell their products, the way that they market their products. They have a website where you can buy their products online. But somehow it doesn't seem to have worked, does it? Why do you think that is?
Absolutely. So, you've been able to buy these things online, but of course, this is where the strength of Tupperware, i.e. Tupperware parties, also becomes its weakness. And the weakness is that everybody associates Tupperware with Tupperware parties and with that particular way of selling, being invited to somebody's home. And very few people would have probably gone to think, oh, well, I'll have a look online and see if I can buy Tupperware that way. And and this is, I think, a really big issue for Tupperware, and probably one of the main reasons why they've filed for liquidation, is that price is king and quality is not. And so if you're in a Tupperware party environment, the price is sort of being disclosed relatively late in the piece, and you can feel the quality. You've probably heard of other people rhapsodizing about the quality. But in an online environment, to assess the quality of a plastic storage container is basically impossible. You could use maybe online reviews, but of course, price is very easy to assess. And so it becomes very obvious very quickly to potential consumers that these are premium priced products and they're, multiple times the cost of a normal plastic storage container. But you can't really assess, you can't feel the quality difference. And so this is one of the big challenges for a lot of companies who are doing e-commerce, that price is king and quality is not, because you cannot assess quality well. And most people have a short time horizon, so they think, oh, well, I'll just buy something, off a website, that's made in a completely different country for, with different labor sort of conditions and all sorts of other things. But they're just really focused on the price. And then when the piece arrives, the quality might not up to standard, but, the cost was so low, they might not care about it.
And Tupperware as a company obviously knows this. Here's a relatively recent ad that extols its 75-year history of trying to do the right thing.
We work to reach every corner to nurture a better future. That's why we offer solutions with our unmatched warranty to live and eat better, avoid food waste, and save valuable time. That's why we manufacture our products to be reusable, recyclable, and eco-friendly, and use high-quality new materials to make our planet a better place. But we don't just stop there. Our innovations have won the Best Design Awards, even taken us out of this world, helping NASA grow vegetables in space. There are many companies that want to be like us, but there's only one Tupperware. Choose good.
Selling on quality will become increasingly difficult, and I think that was one of the major challenges for Tupperware.
Is this approach of prioritising price over quality damaging not just our society, but also our environment?
Absolutely. There is no two ways about it. I used to teach a social and sustainable marketing course at the University of Auckland, and there's a lot of research on just what information consumers use in order to make purchase decisions. And in an online environment, we are incredibly driven by price because it's so easily observable. Anybody knows that a lower price is cheaper, and that's preferable, generally speaking. But all the externalities that are associated with a lower production cost are not visible. Whether palm oil has been used to produce a chocolate, or whether a product was manufactured in a country with different labor conditions or lower environmental regulations. All these things are really hidden, and most consumers for most products, they make the decisions very, very quickly, particularly for grocery products. And so all these externalities, they just don't appear on the actual price ticket, but they have long-term consequences for not just the country where the product is produced, but also for us. Because what happens is, of course, if a product is made cheaply, that product won't last as long, and therefore it just goes into landfill. And so really what we're doing is we're transferring raw materials from some countries into our landfills here in the long term. So, it's one of the major challenges that I think we have as consumers to become less price sensitive and become more quality oriented.
So is Tupperware's announcement that they're closing down, it's not just an end of an era, but is it also a signal that the way we shop is heading in potentially the wrong direction?
I think it is, yeah. I think you could say it's an indicator of a larger problem. It shows that people care less about quality, and really they're just incredibly price focused. And then if you look at people ordering off websites, like Shein and Temu, and a lot of the stuff is not high quality. And so people are very much driven by, fast fashion and fast consumption. And I think the fact that Tupperware has filed for liquidation is an indicator that selling quality products is a difficult task, and particularly in a price saturated environment online where it's very easy to just click somewhere else and say, oh, I could get this for a tenth of the price. Why wouldn't I do that?
But I mean, I think you alluded to it before. We are living in a society where the cost of living is incredibly high, and people are looking for any way possible to save a dollar. How do we kind of combat this price-oriented way of buying while still accounting for the fact that people just don't maybe have the same amount of money?
Yes, I think that's the million-dollar question, really. And I think regulation, in my mind, has something to do with it, illustrating the virtues of products that are higher quality. So to give you an example, if you buy an appliance for the kitchen or for the laundry, we've had for many years now energy efficiency ratings, water usage. Well, generally what happens is you can see that higher priced products, so European manufactured washing machines, for example, or dishwashers, are far more energy efficient and water efficient, and they also do a better job at actually doing the job. Whereas you could buy a cheaply made product from somewhere else, and that seems to be cheaper, but it probably won't last as long, and it's actually going to cost you more money in operating costs.
I mean, I've had those for going on 50 years probably.
50 years.
And you just wash them out and don't put them in the dishwasher. That's one of the rules.
And I still think there's work to be done that really shows the kind of the economic value added of premium price brands. If you're buying a quality, washing machine or dishwasher, that uses less electricity and less water, it shows that on the tickets, on the labels, but it doesn't actually tell the consumer how much they will save over the lifespan of the product. And that's really what they should have, because that's what the product is competing with in the showroom. So I think there's a lot of work to be done of making us, particularly New Zealand, I must say, making us more aware of the long-term consequences of shopping.
You say particularly New Zealand. Are we, as Kiwis, worse in that mindset compared to other parts of the world?
So there's research that shows that German consumers particularly, and it's not just Germans, but I would say probably Dutch and Scandinavians too, they make purchase decisions generally in a more complicated way, in a more systematic way compared to, for example, American consumers. So American consumers use what's called fewer product attributes. So they think about fewer things when they buy a product, and they don't go through as much detail when they make their decision. Whereas German and probably other consumers, they generally do a bigger job and a more complex job of making purchase decisions. And my sense is, I've lived here for more than 30 years now, is that New Zealand consumers think first and foremost of price, and it's always been like this even before we had our cost of living crisis. And you can see that I think it's a cultural aspect of the country, I'm sad to say. And I think we can see it in infrastructure projects or in building houses and in many, many aspects of the country where we build cheap and we maintain expensive. And actually, long term, what we're doing is we're, burning more coal and more oil and this and that and all the other things and filling up our landfills more quickly than really we need to. But we're shying away from that initial larger cost to then get the benefits of lower maintenance or lower energy and water usage.
Coming back to Tupperware, what happens now that they are going into liquidation?
That's a good question. So I think what they're probably hoping to do is to somehow delay their liabilities. And I think that's going to be really, really tough. Once a company announces that it's going into liquidation, I think demand is going to dry up really quickly because nobody wants to buy a product that has a lifetime warranty if you're not sure how much longer that company is around for. So I think they will try to stay afloat for as long as they can. They're probably looking for a buyer that will take the brand on and say, look, I'm buying this brand with the liabilities and I'm going to turn it around into something different. One American iconic brand that has gone through that, there's Polaroid. They've done something similar. They've been bought up cheap and, their brand name is being used for other types of products now. Kodak was in the same boat for a while. Kodak Films, of course, was the market leader by, undisputed. And then digital photography came in and that changed everything. And so there is a chance that the Tupperware brand may survive, maybe even in its current shape, in the sense of selling, plastic storage containers. But it's also an opportunity or possibility that the brand will become something quite different and will definitely go down a tier or two into some other more obscure products. And they just use the brand name for brand name recognition.
Tupperware was just a whole new, we never seen anything like it before. In fact, thinking back, how did we stock our pantries? What did we use? Must have been glass jars and things so long ago. The Tupperware that came in originally was this plain. That was good.
With the sealable lids.
Lids, yeah.
Is that one of the big attractions, the way the lid just
I think so.
off?
Well, it was advertised a way to keep food fresh because, you burp them and let all the air out and etc. And, it doesn't matter what sort of pantry you've got, how tall it is, you could just keep stacking. There's no reason to get rid of it because it's still as good as it was when I bought it, really. I work in a hospice, volunteer this afternoon, and we had to laugh last week. Somebody donated a box of things and one of the ladies called out, look what I found, and it was a celery keeper that Tupperware also put out, and it was ideal, it was quite big. Yeah, so it's still going, but it's quite a lot of it's coming through the op shops.
People build relationships with brands. They have, nostalgia attached to them. And so they become like our, not quite like full-fledged friends, but they certainly have a role to play in our lives. And when these milestones fall off and just vanish, I think there's a little loss, I think, of our personality, where we think, oh, well, I used to buy that and, oh, it's not there anymore. And there's a little sadness attached to that. But I also think it's because of what we talked about earlier, that this is a marker for there is a change in tide and people are very price focused, just the purchase price, nothing else. And that is not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah, nothing lasts forever, does it? So, it's their turn.
That's all for today. The Detail is a newsroom production supported by RNZ and New Zealand On Air. Thank you to Bodo Lang, Lynn Hinton, Nick Watts and Jocelyn Hill. This episode was produced by Alexia Russell and engineered by Alex Harmer. I'm Davina Zimmer. Ka kite anō.